You're watching the Inside Spurs podcast here with talkSPORT. Joining us today, you've of course got Sonny Snelling from the Sonny Talk Spurs and, of course, the Athletic Spurs reporter Jay Harris. Now, before reporting for Spurs, Jay, you covered Brentford for a good few years, a period of time. So you're a man that's going to know all about Thomas Frank. Now, so many people have been talking about the conversations we're having. Sonny already mentioned there as well before that, you know, it seems like Spurs have spoke to him in some capacity. Would he be a good fit for Spurs, first and foremost, from what you've seen over your expertise of following Brentford?
So I should say I'm still trying to work out exactly what is or isn't happening, but I will admit it did catch my attention that he was not quoted on their signing of Kevin Keller and Michael Coyote, which is unusual. That's all I'll say. I'll let the conspiracy theorists do whatever they want with that. What I would say is that Thomas Frank is he's a really nice person, first and foremost. I think he's a fantastic coach, and I think the best way I could sort of explain what he's good at to people would be to look at the development and the progression over the last few years of Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney, Brian Mbeumo, Johan Wissa. These players all joined Brentford with potential, and he's managed to develop them and help them become basically brilliant Premier League strikers. I think Mbeumo in particular is the standout because I covered Brentford for their first 3 seasons in the Premier League, and Mbeumo in that first season, I think he scored 3 goals from open play in 35 games and got 1 penalty. Massively underperformed his XG, hit the woodwork 7 times. An exciting winger, but one of those players you just got frustrated with because he'd constantly make the wrong decision. Last season he played really well, but then had an ankle injury, which ruled him out for 3 months. And then this year he's just sort of built on that, absolutely exploded and got 20 goals, massively overperformed his XG. So his development has been fantastic. I think the main difference with Frank and Postecoglou is that Frank's a lot more tactically flexible. His first couple of years in the Premier League with Brentford, he mainly used the 3-5-2. I'm sure people can remember that 2-0 victory over Arsenal where Raya was just pumping it long to Ivan Toney, who bullied, I think it might have been Pablo Mari and Ben White, who started at centre-back that day. And then over the last couple of years, he's gone back more to a 4-3-3. He wants Brentford to play out from the back. They've been more of a 4-2-3-1 this season with Mikkel Damsgaard, who's had a great season as the 10. So I think he's very receptive and open to tweaking things. I've seen him be really proactive and aggressive with substitutions in games when they're losing. And I don't really think I can recall a time when Postecoglou's done quite the same with the same amount of conviction. It's more just switching a right winger for a right winger. There's not much actual change to the shape in the system. So I think in a world where he does end up as Spurs head coach, it'd be very, very interesting to see. I think my only doubts about him is that he's got no experience of European football. I think when he was in charge of Brøndby in Denmark, he got them to like the Europa League qualifying round once, but he's never managed in the Europa League, the Conference League, the Champions League. And so to be dropped into a job where straight away you're going to be competing with Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday in the Champions League and the Premier League, I think would test him. Brentford played, I think, 42 games this season. Spurs played 60. So you've got 80 more games to worry about. Brentford are underdogs, they'll admit that. They've got one of the lowest wage bills in the division. His job's never really been under threat in the 7 or so years he's been at Brentford. It'd be very different circumstances at Spurs. You know, if you don't start well, the pressure would quickly be on you, especially if you're succeeding the first manager to win a trophy in 17 years. So I'd be intrigued to see how it handles it all.
That's great information there, Jay. Thank you very much. Sonny, I want to move on to you with all of that being said. Now, as Jay rightly mentioned, this is a manager that's not managed in Europe, especially the Champions League. What kind of ambition does it say to the Spurs fans if we were to go and get someone like Thomas Frank in? Or are we going on the back of the fact that we've got the Contes in, we've got the Mourinhos in, and that didn't necessarily work for us? Is this almost like a Pochettino version 2.0?
Yeah, I feel like what I've seen by some Spurs fans about Thomas Frank, I think it's like the level of disrespect is quite outrageous considering the job he's done there. And when I was talking about identity crisis, that doesn't just mean as a club, that means as a fan base as well. And now we've won a trophy, the expectations might go up another level. And a lot of fans wanted Inzaghi before he went to Al Hilal. They wanted maybe Carlo Ancelotti before he went to Brazil. Or, you know, some elite coach like get Nagelsmann from Germany or something like that. But I feel like we now need to go back a step and reset. And we mentioned earlier about this being a springboard. I think Thomas Frank could be the perfect person to reset Spurs. Jay was saying how nice he is. Like, I feel like for many years we've had managers who, in press conferences, in interviews, they're just playing the game and they're not clear, they're not concise, they get agitated, they have a go at the fans, they have a go at the owner, they have a go at the players. Thomas Frank is like amazing when it comes to his PR. He's done so many interviews on Sky, on different platforms, talkSPORT as well, where he just comes across amazing. He's to the point, and I just feel like what I see from him on the pitch as well, it's someone who's pragmatic. He's proactive, not reactive. He's in game thinking about how can I tweak this. He changes for each opponent, and I think with that level of coaching, that doesn't give me any fear in Europe. That doesn't give me any fear in other competitions. And when you've seen him go out to, they lost to Plymouth, didn't they, in the FA Cup, and they haven't performed well in the cup competitions. Brentford don't really care about the cup competitions. I know at talkSPORT there's two guys on the web team who are Brentford fans. They're still just happy to be in the Premier League, and finishing 10th to them is like amazing. So I just feel like there are a lot of positives with Thomas Frank. I feel like he can reset Tottenham's identity. He can get the Spurs fans. Because the thing is, I feel like the emotions have gone up since we won that trophy. Thomas Frank's record against the Big Six is also quite impressive. I just feel like when we can praise Thomas Frank, and then when people like try and beat him with a stick, you have got to remember, like, that squad is still quite thin. You know, you look at Brentford's bench, it isn't strong. You know, their strongest team is the team they play every week: Damsgaard and Buemo, Visser, etc. And a lot of that team was in the Championship with him. A lot of the Danes who are still there now. So it is just. I feel like it makes perfect sense, because Tottenham and lots of these big clubs want to run and be like Brentford, like Brighton, you know, like the way they do their signings, the way they use stats and their youth academies and stuff like that. So I feel like with the managers that are available, and if we want to stick or twist, I feel like Frank is the front runner. And finally, my last point is, a lot of people are comparing it to Nuno when Nuno came to Spurs. But Nuno was like the 400th choice that summer. Thomas Frank looks like he's the first choice. So there's planning that's been put into this. Whereas I'd say Nuno was a bit knee jerk, and the styles are completely different. Like, even people who like compare Frank maybe to like being a bit more defensive. Well, of course he's going to be a bit more defensive than Ange Postecoglou. I mean, look at like the numbers we concede goals wise, but we score. But then, if you'd said to me like 10 years ago there'd be a Premier League side who, you know, in Brentford, who would come up and have two players who score 40 goals between them, I would have like laughed you out the room. Like, that's proper Barclaysman territory maybe. But I mean I think I've convinced you guys maybe that I am all for Frank. I am Frank in.
You definitely sound Frank in.